the legend that is Stephen Ramsden. Hi, Steve.
Hello, Astro Radio fans. Thank you so much for allowing me on your show. I'm glad to be here.
That was a very good radio voice. Then I love that. It's
Yeah.
Glad to get him on full time.
How are things out there in the United States at the moment?
We are losing our minds and such, just like everyone else with the pandemic and all the politics and everything that we won't be talking about on this show because there's so much more to love outside in nature than any of this garbage.
Yeah, we've talked about American politics before on this show, but
it's a lost cause.
Well, the thing is, I do some work with the BBC, and they've told me I've got to zip it.
Yeah, that's a good idea. That's a good idea. You know, the only outcome of any of those conversations is that you lose friends that you would otherwise still have.
Yeah,
and I find it to be a total waste of time.
Definitely. So anyway, we're going to come to what you're best known for is the Charlie Bates Solar Astronomy Project. Can you tell us a little bit about, well, don't tell us a little bit about it, tell us a lot about it. And also we have our UK representative in tonight as well, Mr. Mark Townley. So it's great that we've got the pair of you.
Mm-hmm. Hello there.
Oh. Mark Townley, good to see you. The listeners aren't getting the benefit of all these wonderful folks here in this Zoom meeting. And I'm so glad to be able to talk to all of you. I know a lot of you from Facebook, and it's great to see the faces. And Pete, I'm a big fan of the show. Keep doing what you're doing. Solar Sphere, all this stuff. I mean, I feel like you're the legend, and it's just lucky for you to be on my show.
Well, welcome to the Steve Ramsden Show, folks.
Thank you. I'll get the somber note out of the way, and then we'll have fun.
Yeah.
I have been very, very fortunate in life. I was, born during the Apollo age and grew up convinced I was going to be living on the moon by now, on Moonbase Alpha with my own shuttlecraft, and Martin Landau and all those people. The lady with the funny sideburns was going to be my girlfriend. But things took a different turn in society, and we, gave up on a lot of the things we should still be doing. Exploration, in my opinion, is the key to advancement in society. I became an air traffic controller after serving in the military on a submarine, and was very fortunate in that I had a decent, stable job and was able to accumulate financial well-being, et cetera. All those things that you hope for your children. Thanks to a couple of people that gave me some great advice as a youngster and showed me science at an early age. I was really able to live a really good life. I'm not, super wealthy or anything, but I was very comfortable. So while I was an air traffic controller, I had a good friend named Charlie Bates, who was also a veteran and an air traffic controller, and we were friends. And he was a very, very kind man who would give you the shirt off his back, as we say in the United States. And hey, kitty cat. Mark Townley's cat is walking by, ruining my mood.
Sorry.
I'm kidding. So Charlie and I were good buddies, and Charlie got some demons after his wife died from cancer. And the same things everyone fights in their life, depression and a little bit of abuse, and ended up killing himself. And I thought, why is it that at 42 years of age, this person I look up to, their mind took them to a point where they no longer wanted to live? And why am I so fortunate that I don't feel that way? And I just had the soul searching, that people do when they get in their 40s. They wonder what's life all about. And I decided that I was not going to allow my friend to be remembered as the guy who took his own life, because he had so many more great things about him than any of that. So I've been interested in space since I was a kid, and disappointed that I wasn't in space since I was a kid. And I decided I was going to take those things that were given to me so freely by gentlemen, like you, like us now. They were our age. And I was going to take that and share that with as many young people as I could find, sort of like what Mark's doing as a teacher. He's not in it for the money. He's in it for the future of society. And I thought, the best thing I can do, since I've got this available assets, telescopes, things like that, is just to start having other people use them as much as possible, give them away, convince other people that the best thing you can do is share what you know and what you love, and that will in turn possibly keep some of these kids on the straight and narrow and allow them to get through this hardship of growing up without turning to drugs or alcohol and without, ending up on the street like they do here in the States so often. So I started the Charlie Bates Solar Astronomy Project, and Pete, you'll be interested to know that I sold a 1957 Gibson Les Paul to start my program and buy my first telescopes. I had a little stint as a musician here in the States for a while. I was a goth, black goth musician. That's a whole nother world. I was slimmer back then. But anyway, I bought these telescopes and I decided, I'm going to go share this science with people. And the goal of this program was to get as many young people as possible at the eyepiece of a telescope and explain to them what's going on outside of their little bubble that they stay in hopes of bettering society. So that's the point of it. And the Charlie Bates Solar Astronomy Project is a nonprofit, what you would call an NGO there, I think, in the United States. And we accumulate resources from those that have it, and we distribute them to those that don't have it. And that's what Charlie Bates does. And since then, and since 2017, I've also started a nature affiliate of Charlie Bates, which is called Sunlit Earth. And that extends the study of the visual spectrum of light from the sun into how organisms, plants, and animals use these different wavelengths to survive, why things are the color they are, how animals have evolved to adapt to our star's specific spectrum, how we've adapted to our star's specific spectrum, and things like that. So that's what Charlie Bates is all about. And it's been very successful. We're present to some degree in 27 countries around the globe, including the UK. And I think that we've made a difference with a few people, and that's good enough for me. That's what Charlie Bates is all about.
I mean, effectively, when I started to do solar stuff, it was a Charlie Bates Society that it gave me the inspiration to go out and do it, to be honest. And then, of course, I met the likes of you down at Greenwich many years ago, and met Mark through this as well. And Mark comes every year to SolarSphere, and he represents Charlie Bates at SolarSphere, gets the old the banner up there, and does the stuff every year. We don't always have clear times, but we were only talking here on Astro Radio the other day. We've had lots of very I would call high profile speakers at SolarSphere, but the person who has filled the room the most is Mr. Townley. And
I can believe that.
It was amazing. And I mean, on the same day, I think we had Lucy in a little bit later, and Mark, I think he had 50% more audience than what Lucy had.
Mark is a no-nonsense person who is extraordinarily intelligent and I think highly underrated.
He's brilliant. I mean, the way he puts it across as well, it's quite. I'd say it's user-friendly is the word we'd use. It's user-friendly because he puts the scopes up there at SolarSphere, and people go over who've never looked through a solar scope before, and he does it. But when you were over here in the UK, did you find the attitude towards astronomy different to what you find in the United States?
I did. And I should preface that with the United States and the UK attitude was very similar, except that the UK had a lot more participants, and if you can believe this, a lot less complaining. Yeah, I know that's a shocker for you guys, but outside of the US and the UK, I will tell you that every single person in every astronomy club I ever visited showed up for every event and worked the entire time. There was zero complaining about anything. No one had an excuse. And this other part, they were almost all of them were under 30 years old. These were all graduate students in colleges that were out in astronomy clubs. North Africa, Eastern Europe, Australia. In the US and the UK, for some reason, it's mostly older gentlemen in the clubs. And they don't have as much free time as young people, or as much energy, unfortunately, because I'm also an older gentleman. So the attitudes around the rest of the world are very, very different than they are in the US and the UK. But I would say that the UK's interest in this is greater than the US, and that the people in the club that I was with in the UK, Astronomy for Fun, and a couple other places we visited, were more involved than they are in the US. And I'm sad to say that, but you did ask the question. So I would say you guys are slightly better than us, but nowhere close to the rest of the world.
How did you find your time out? Because I think you went out to visit Australia as well, didn't you? Not so long ago.
Yes. Yeah, I spent 5 weeks in Australia, and that was wonderful. I mean, how can you not have a great astronomy crowd under the Southern Hemisphere skies? To go back to the England trip, though, I barely escaped with my life as I was chauffeured around by a gentleman named Gary Palmer,
Oh, God, yeah.
who drove what I thought was some sort of rocket ship. But it turned out to be, and he was using this little app on his phone. Oh, come on, mate, we can turn this way. Smoking a cigarette, screeching all over town. And I was really lucky to get home alive after the Gary Palmer incident. But I was treated like a king there, and I was really grateful because so many people showed up and did so much work to greet me. And Mark and his wife somehow crammed me into their small car and drove me around, and we met, some for the last time, people there. And I got to tell you, it was a wonderful trip. And my family's English heritage, and I've never really studied that much. And going there, I really felt more at home than I expected, because I had a big belly and I looked like an English guy, so I kind of fit in well.
You fit in well, yeah.
And a bald head.
That's it. I've got the photograph of me and you, and it's indistinguishable. I mean, we're as large as each other.
I was able to visit. You'll have to help me. Hertzmannsoo.
Hertzmannsoo.
Yeah.
Hertzmannsoo. Why do you pronounce it that? Why do you say Leicester? Well, what's wrong with Leicester? What's up with you guys?
I know.
Aluminum router. Where do we go here? Come on, Frank. Come on.
But I was able to visit there with my friend Steve, and we were able to donate a double stack Coronado 90mm telescope to the observatory that they still use. And they had a group of 2nd and 3rd grade students there to watch, to look at the sun. Yeah, it was just a lot of fun, man. I mean, what a beautiful place to visit. We have nothing like that in the States, an observatory of that stature or nature. So it was good to see some of the older traditional astronomical setups, like, Greenwich, for instance, Isaac Newton's observatory. I mean, come on, man, that was just incredible. I mean, even our most revered institutions are nowhere near the historical significance or beauty of those places. So I was really happy about that. And thanks, guys, for treating me so well when I was there.
Well, I saw your double stack. I was down at Hertzmannsoo, so I did a couple of talks there, and I was due to go back this year to do the Herschel to Hawkwind. You wouldn't even know who Hawkwind is, but it's an English space rock band. We invented the genre of music called space rock back in the
man, I need to be in that.
In the day.
But I was due to go back there, but when I went down there, that they got your double stack, so I was having to play around with that when I was down there last.
Awesome. I hope you enjoyed it. That's one of the original Coronado double stack 90s, and I was really happy that it got into good hands.
Right, I'm gonna hand it over to the guys in the panel here tonight to have a chat with you and ask you any questions they wish to ask you. Away you go, folks.
Okay, who would like to go first? Okay, well, I'll jump in first then.
I can see I'm a big attraction. Thank you.
Oh, you are. It's just, we're all like in awe at the moment. It's shocking awe, I want to say thanks for your support for societies in the UK with your solar projects and that. We in England, it's not always easy to get solar glasses, the safe solar filtered glasses, and you basically hand these out in thousands. 1999 eclipse. I know our society, lots in the northwest of England and the UK, received these, and you do take a donation as well, if I'm right.
Well, I never associate any sort of fees or donations with what I do, and I just leave that up to the goodwill of people. Here in the United States, I'm sponsored by a company called Rainbow Symphony, which is the world's largest solar glasses maker. So I'm happy to send boxes of glasses over anytime you guys want them, because I know they're going to be used.
Yeah, we've used them for the kids when there's been partial eclipses, or we don't get many solar eclipses, of course, in this country.
Well, every day is a solar eclipse there with the clouds, right?
That's it. Yeah, we don't do too good. But I mean, it's great. We talk about naked eye sunspots as well, and you got to be careful when you say you can look at the sun with these glasses. Some people get the wrong idea and think they can use Baker foil or anything that you can just dim the sun down with. But when we explain to them what these eclipse glasses are, and certainly 1999 was good education, and your project really pushed that out.
Those paper glasses cost 28 cents a piece.
Yeah.
And at almost every event I've ever done, the students are way more interested in the paper glasses than they are in the $20,000 hydrogen alpha telescope I have set up. If I can get a kid hooked on science with a 28-cent pair of glasses, then that's what I'm going to do. So we've distributed over 1 million pairs of those around the world. And I'm happy to say, thanks to donors like you guys, we've never had to charge a penny for any of them. So I plan on continuing to do that. And if you guys need them, you just let me know and they'll be over there. The problem is with borders in our world, not as bad in England as it is in other places, but like Central America, they're held hostage until somebody pays these exorbitant custom fees. In Kosovo with Pranvera, every bit of equipment I ever shipped there was held hostage by the Serbs until they paid these 200-300% custom fees, just whatever they made up at the time. So that's when I started flying to these places, because it was cheaper for me to fly round trip to Pristina, Kosovo, with a telescope than it was to ship it there. So the sooner we can get rid of these borders, I think the better off we'll all be as Earthlings, and the quicker we'll get into the Federation.
Hey, one day. I'll just finish quickly with what you're doing with the Charlie Bates project is what we in the Northwest picked up with John Dobson and his Sidewalk Astronomy. We took the Sidewalk Astronomy, we basically went with it and increased our membership and put the education out there. We got the kids on board, the schools on board. It's amazing what that outreach actually does. So, with your stuff as well, the solar side of it, and certainly with Mark and, I was thinking of the chat room that you have, Mark, Solar Chat.
Yeah.
I mean, that is an excellent site.
It
very
is,
educational. And I think it's just out there, isn't it? It's one of the top sites to go to. I tend to meander on subjects, so I won't hog all the time. Does anybody else like to ask a question?
Yeah, the Solar Chat site is by far the world's largest solar astronomy internet forum. Mark has done a great job of that. And that came out of the attitudes that I encountered when I first started this program, and I was on another competing site, and all I got was people yelling at me that I didn't know what I was talking about, and that you're dumb, you can't do this, you're stupid. So I just started my own program and my own internet forum, and that's where Solar Chat came from. And it's got over, what, Mark, 250,000 posts on it now, 30,000 or so members.
Yeah.
And it really runs itself. I mean, people are friendly. Nobody, nobody mansplains anything to anybody else. So I'm really fond of that site. And thanks for running it, Mark.
For me, one of the key things is people sharing the information. There's lots of people coming into this. It's an expanding subject, and for me, Solar Chat. People go on there, they ask questions, and people share information. And the usual thing, everybody wants to do everything as cheaply as possible.
Right.
Solar astronomy doesn't go with cheap. But I do believe that the advice that is given out there is safe, and if people aren't giving out safe and sensible advice, then it's not allowed to go out.
Well, where else can you go and talk to the world's most well-known solar imagers anytime you want to, and just be one-on-one with those people? I think it's a great source, and we've only had one wacko the whole time. It's been open for 8 years, and we've only had to toss one fruitcake from the whole site. I think that's a great record, man.
That's impressive.
Thank you so much.
I just love the advice that you give out.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter whether you're a beginner coming in or you're a bit more advanced. You come up with an idea. Why can't we do this with the solar telescope?
Right.
And you quite wisely say, well, because if you do, you're going to burn your eyes out. But if it's got potential for as a good idea, you say, well, hey, this is interesting. Let's look into this. Let's get the science behind this as well.
Well, another thing we're proud of over there is that there's not a single advertisement or fee of any kind associated with the program, and I think that's important too. So yeah, we've been happy with the way that worked out. I've had lots of headaches trying to keep it running sometimes because Russian and Chinese bots keep taking it over. Mark and I see all the crazy stuff in the background, but we're able to keep it from the foreground. And that website address is solarchatforum.com, solarchatforum.com, if you're interested.
It's interesting as well, I think, on Solar Chat, there's been one or two, I'm going to say, amateur inventions out there that some of the professional solar retailers have actually taken on board and retailed as their own projects.
That's very true.
It's
I said you've actually, myself and my society, Mark's advice and others, have actually helped resurrect some telescopes that were actually considered no good anymore. A certain filter in the system basically deteriorated over time. I won't go into detail, but with the correct advice and the correct directions, I personally got 6 of them up running safely as guided by yourselves.
That is great.
And I know I've got 6 friends out there who are using them telescopes. We're waiting for that sun to start getting busy again. It's happening. It's coming.
It will happen. It will happen. I was just watching a show on BBC yesterday called Cobra.
Yeah.
I don't know if any of you have seen it. It's a drama about a solar storm that knocks out the UK. So I'm really excited now about
what a
solar
time for
maximum coming out.
We don't need any more disasters. We've already got a pandemic.
Yeah, so Solar Chat Forum is cool. There's also a solar spectroscopy forum on Solar Chat, which I believe is the only one in existence. And it's got it's got the world's best authority on solar spectroscopy there and the instruments used to study that.
Yeah.
It's a wonderful thing. And Alexandra Hart puts a lot into the forum as well to keep things going. I don't know if you guys know Alexandra.
Yeah. She doesn't live too far from me, about 20 miles away, something like that.
So you're rich too then. You live near Alexandra.
Peter has his own castle.
He does.
Wow. I'll come in there next time.
We have a castle in the village here. So
Alexandra is a bird watcher as well, which I'm into, and she participates a lot on the Sunlit Earth forum, and they also even have a Sunlit Earth sort of nature portion of Solar Chat forum. So yeah, it's just as a community of people, that are kind of off the wall a little bit, but there's a bunch of them out there, and getting them all together for friendly conversation seems to be a good thing to spread it to more people, and that's the point of it.
yeah. Okay, what we'll do, we'll go over to another track now, and then we'll come back to Stephen after this track. This is Disturbed. And
Yes.
We're
This
all
is
a bit that.
We're all feeling disturbed, I think.
I think we all are. God.
okay, folks, we're back. You're back on air. You're back live.
We're back live. We're just having a good chat about things generally. Things that we all have in common.
Before we move on, come on, Steve, you've got to do your party piece on the guitar.
Oh, yes, yeah.
Okay,
Get
I
that
wrote this
guitar,
just for
come on.
you, man. Let's see if I can not mess it up. Your own Bert P. Williamson. Reach out and touch space. All rights reserved. Speak to my agent for any rights.
The track will be available on.
I could go on and on, but
Well, yeah, you could.
I think that's quite enough.
Yeah. One of the questions I was going to ask you, while I calm myself down again, then one of the questions I was going to ask you. Obviously, you travel all around the world with Charlie Bates. What are some of the funny stories? What some of the funny things that have happened to you on your travels?
Well, on that topic, I also traveled all around the world in the military, and the difference is astounding when you go places and you're not, carrying a gun or you're not in uniform. And one of the places that was unbelievably respectful and patriotic and had more American flags than even where I live is Kosovo. Kosovo is a very new country that declared its freedom in the early 2000s. And their war occurred when we had Bill Clinton was our president. And some of the streets in downtown Pristina are named after the Secretary of State, Madeleine Albright, and some of the politicians in. And they have statues of American politicians in the downtown square of Kosovo, and just thousands of American flags. I was not allowed to spend a penny in that country when I got there, and they found out I was former military. I went to rent a car, and I was expecting, a Yugo or something and $100 a day like they would cost here. And I got to the rental car agency. The guy found out I was a veteran, and I was driving a 5 Series Mercedes for 3 weeks without any charge, nothing. The guy even paid for the gas. So that was an unusual experience. Australia was pretty funny. When I got to Australia, my nonprofit director there, Rob Black, met me at the airport in Townsville, and he wasn't wearing any shoes. He was wearing a pair of shorts and an unbuttoned shirt, like he just come in off of some kind of kangaroo hunt or something. And the guy had feet that looked like a Cro-Magnon man. You know, they were hairy and ugly, and these nails were going out like some kind of hobbit or something. I'm like, what the hell have I gotten myself into here? And I talked to the guy, and that's just the way they act over there. Nobody's wearing shoes or anything. So North Africa, when I arrived in Tunisia, and I'm a pretty secular guy, pretty open-minded guy, I'd like to think. But I'll tell you, probably the most haunting first night I spent anywhere was in Tunisia, because I was alone in this French dormitory that used to be a university. I'm the only person there, and around sunset, all of a sudden, all these Islamic, I don't know what you call them, chants started playing over the loudspeakers everywhere. And that's the first time I'd experienced that. I kind of knew a little bit about it from the military, but it was really an awesomely beautiful sound. And I had I was a little bit worried. And then all of a sudden I was like, you know, this is really beautiful, man. And so I listened to these Islamic chants for a good 30 minutes. I guess it was their final prayer of the day or whatever. But man, that was a weird feeling. And the last one was in Hawaii on the top of Mauna Kea the night before the Venus transit. I was there with Andy Lunt and some people there filming for NASA. And I was really stoned because it was so high of an altitude. I really couldn't think straight. And I'm in the dormitory that night trying to breathe and you know, feeling like I'd smoked a bunch of marijuana or something. So I called my wife on the laptop and I'm talking all this craziness to my wife, you know, like I'm 19 years old or something. And that was a weird thing too. So it took about 24 hours for me not to be completely, you know, stoned out of my mind while I was in Hawaii.
Yeah. Did you find when you were so high up that your vision was affected?
Yeah, I don't recall that, but I will tell you that my body temperature was affected because it was about 90 degrees on the base of the mountain. And this is June 6th. And by the time I got up to 14,500 feet, it was snowing and 28 degrees Fahrenheit, or I guess about -6 or 8 for you guys. It was freezing, man. I didn't have any kind of winter clothes or anything. So I ended up getting some boots and a coat going up there. And then when we were done, we came back down. I was back in 85 degrees in Kona, Hawaii, trying to get on an airplane. So I was literally stripping off my clothes and leaving them on the street as I'm walking back towards the place to get on the airport. So it's been a lot of adventures, and I'm really glad because when you go to these different places, you really see that everyone is pretty much the same. And there's the same group of people I found in every country I've been to, you know, in every group. It's usually 3 or 4% of the people that do all the actual work, about 20% of the people that complain and moan and groan about everything, no matter what it is. And about 70% of the people just want to be left alone. You know, leave me alone, man. I'm living my life. And I found that to be pretty consistent everywhere. And the similarities between us and them, you know, how we like to go do us and them all the time.
Yeah.
There's really not any them. It's all us, if you ask me. And everybody's pretty much the same. So that's what my major revelation about traveling a lot was. And in the military, when I traveled, I was underwater. So yeah, I've seen every continent on Earth, but I've seen it from 60 feet below the surface. So.
Rob Black was a radio guy, wasn't he?
Yeah, he had a couple of radio shows in Australia, and they were fairly successful. He worked for a radio station in his hometown there of Home Hill, Australia, which, let me tell you, when I was there, I was stopped at least once a day by somebody who asked me just to talk to them because they loved the Southern accent from the United States. The women and the men, they could not get enough of it, man. They would want me to stop and talk to them. So that's the same way my wife feels about you guys. She wants to listen, and I do too. I really enjoy listening to an English accent. And it was unusual to be treated on the other side of that in Australia because I was stopped on the street all the time. Hey, do you know anything about swamp people? Everybody thought I was on the show Swamp People because I was from the Southern U.S. You know, it's just weird to get these different cultural comments from people, you know?
Yeah. Is Rob Black still with us? Or, because last time I spoke to Rob was about 4 years ago and he'd got pancreatic cancer, if I remember rightly.
Oh, that's a long story for another session, but Rob Black, I hope the best for him. Rob hasn't contacted us in many years, and I know that he sold all the equipment to his friend Jonathan and disappeared, and I'm not sure what happened to Rob. I wish I knew.
So he came on the radio before we did Astro Radio. We had another radio station. It was a rock radio station, and he came on that to chat. Did a little bit of presenting for us.
I remember that.
Yeah, and then he kind of, he said he wasn't well, and he vanished, and I've never heard from him again. So
yeah, the last I saw of him was a photograph from Jonathan in Brisbane of him in the back of a van with one of the IMAX that I took over there, and he just looked like Rob Black. And I'm not sure what happened to Rob Black.
No. No. So I would say one of the people you really set alight was Pranvera. She set the world alight basically by being everywhere.
I've created a monster.
You have. And
did she get out of Australia? Is she still down in Australia?
No, she made it out of there finally. She spent almost 6 months barricaded in Australia because she wasn't allowed to leave. She had a Kosovar passport, which wasn't even recognized by Australians to begin with. And they restricted travel to the United States because we're the #1 hotspot for COVID. So she was stuck there for many months. Pranvera, she is not unlike several other Pranveras and other men that I've contacted in different countries that are all doing as much work as Pranvera. Pranvera, her secret is that she took the opportunity to learn the Queen's English, and I use that term loosely as an American, but she took the opportunity to learn fluent English by watching Hollywood movies. And that made all the difference for Pranvera. And I hate to say that because, it shouldn't be a thing, but her ability to speak English is really what got her out there. And the fact that she was doing enormously good work in Kosovo. So she's Astronomy Outreach for Kosovo is by far the highest volume astronomy outreach program in all of Europe. And she is easily the most popular Kosovar in existence right now. I mean, by a long shot. So
she's regularly on SLU with us now also.
I understand she's a SLU ambassador.
She is. Right. Yes, she is.
SLU ambassador. I'm still waiting for my free t-shirt, man, my SLU t-shirt. Putting you on Pranvera. But she's awesome. There are at least a dozen other Pranveras associated with Charlie Bates, and I've met them all. And it's just a shame, that we have these barriers between us with language and borders and things. Everyone speaks math in my program, and I wish we could just talk math back and forth, because then there would be no language barriers.
Well, that word math, it for us in England, it's like, or in Great Britain or the UK, math. It's like you haven't finished the word.
Oh, mathematics?
No, maths. Math.
Oh, math. Yeah, you've never seen that before. That's another thing you guys need to fix, man. Come on.
Yeah, we can't cope with this math. And
is it singular or plural?
Well, it's the language of nature. And in all seriousness,
yeah.
I'm a big Star Trek fan, as a lot of you already know. And I really, grew up watching it and was hoping that we would be doing that now. And, we'd be in a world that was based on merit and not, color or religion or any of that kind of stuff. And that we'd all be speaking math back and forth with universal translators.
Yeah. Steve, you mentioned obviously Space 1999,
yes.
Moonbase Alpha. Obviously a fan of that, I take it?
Oh, yeah, man. Are you kidding? Who isn't a fan of that? Come on.
Yeah, we had a question, and we were discussing it around the table a week or so ago. How many Eagles did they have on that space base, on that moon base?
How many Eagles?
Well, every week.
Oh, you mean the ship?
Yeah.
Because I'm a bird watcher, and I immediately started thinking of bald eagles. Like, what is he talking about?
American Eagles. No, the Eagle spacecraft.
Yeah, Eagle 1, Eagle 2. Yeah, they must have had a bunch of them because, one of them was blown up at least once in every show.
That's right. Or someone would steal one and go off on a different pathway, whatever. So they must have been knocking them out in a factory somewhere on the other side of the moon, I think.
Yeah, but, those outfits they wore, I mean, that was one of the very few shows on American television in those days, because that was back before the BBC got super
as a young lad, I never noticed Gabrielle Drake at all.
That was in UFO, not Space 99.
Well, we just thought that everyone in London looked like that, because that's the only the only sample of England we got was Doctor Who and Space 1999. So I was really shocked to find out that all of you don't look like that.
No, but I mean, you were saying you'd like us to be doing Star Trek now. I don't know if you realise that there are Klingon warbirds and Romulan warbirds cloaked in orbit around the Earth all the time. Didn't you know that?
Well, I saw that on Facebook just a few minutes ago.
Yeah.
So of course it's true. Of course it's true. And they're the ones that dropped the virus, the gay virus or whatever it is.
Yeah, they dropped it. They dropped it, and here it is.
Normally I would be wearing my Vulcan mask for these interviews, and I also have a full Klingon outfit that I can wear, because at my size these days, the only option for me to dress up as Star Trek is a Klingon or Orion slave trader. The days of me being Captain Kirk are over, my friends.
Yeah, no, I mean, sitting behind me, I've got on my bookshelf, I don't know if you ever had it out there, Fireball XL5, Steve Zodiac and all that, UFO, Space 1999, and one of my favorites was Lost in Space.
Oh yeah, man, it was a great show. Danger, Will Robinson.
Yeah,
Danger.
I mean, that robot, for a piece of machinery, it could do.
Jupiter 2.
You could imagine it having expressions on its face, and it was just a piece of machinery. But
it was a bit stupid, really, wasn't it?
No.
My God.
Every week, Dr. Zachary Smith. Every week, Zachary Smith always fooled the robot.
They've got a remake of that show out.
That was perfect. That was ideal.
Yeah, it was.
Have you watched it?
I have. Of course, I've watched it.
Oh, I'm waiting for the new series. Look, not one of the series, excellence. But I binge watched it. It was great.
Me too.
We'll ask Mark. What sci-fi programs are you into, Mark?
Answer carefully.
Star Trek.
Hey.
Yeah.
Which one though? Original.
Next Generation.
That's my one. That's my one.
Next Generation. Okay, I can accept that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Getting excited for Dune, and you guys excited to see what's coming out with Dune now in a few weeks here? Or?
Sure, my wife's a big fan of that.
Oh yeah.
It's getting good reviews. What's being said about it? Yeah.
Star Trek Enterprise is by far the best one. Just to let you know. You guys all the Star Trek
I was
franchises.
upset when Enterprise was going. It started off slow, and then into the next series, it was getting better and better. And then they pulled the plug on it because the viewing levels went down.
Right.
And it was
Star Trek Enterprise is special to me because it bridges the gap between right now and the Federation.
Which one are you talking? Oh, you're talking about the back to the original prequel.
Talking about Scott Bakula, the Captain Archer with the dog. He had a dog on the ship, man.
I'm with you. Yeah.
So
no, John Luke Picard is the best captain. I'm sorry. I'm
Well, I won't argue with
what about
that. I won't argue with that.
What about this new one that came out not so long ago? It's in its second series, waiting for the third series. Yeah, I think that grew on me. I wasn't sure about this drive that it had.
I'm glad you brought that up, David, because Star Trek Discovery Season 3 airs tonight in the United States.
You're joking.
No.
I'm glad you come on tonight, mate. That's it.
We are absolutely excited. It's only 4 p.m. here in the States, but we are jumping for joy that Star Trek Discovery Season 3 will
I've
start
just had a message in from Serge in India, and he just said the conversation has really taken a turn for the better.
I agree.
Well, what can you say? It's sci-fi. Sci-fi and astronomy is all part of the package.
Simon down there in Bath, what's your favourite show?
I'd kind of actually liked a bit of Star Wars myself.
Oh, you've got Hershman Sue behind you.
It is Hershman Sue, yeah.
How do we block Simon? How do we block him? Hold on. Did you say Star Wars?
He's a Star Wars fan. Sorry, Steve.
I'm kidding. I love all
dear
this.
Simon, you're in trouble.
I love it. Did you say you're in Bath, Simon?
Yes, Bath, yeah.
Yeah, I spent a week there, and I really loved that place, man. It was so
Did you happen to go to the Herschel Museum by chance?
No, I did not. This was in 1992.
You should have done, because that's where Simon lives.
You must come back.
Well, that was my honeymoon when I was married right out of the military. I went there for some reason and stayed there. And I really had a wonderful time there. I really liked that place.
Yeah. Simon, we have to ask Simon this question every show. Have you been painting today? Every time he comes on, he's been painting something in his observatory.
Well, not my observatory, the school observatory and the community observatory. So, yes, the boards went up and they all got painted. So, notice boards and all the kids' work will start going up there soon. So, yay!
Are you a teacher in Bath, Simon?
No, I do IT stuff, but whenever I get a spare moment away, I try and do as much outreach as possible. So,
Do you program those things that spy on me and send me ads for mouthwash when I'm talking about mouthwash?
I'll be
not me
Alexa.
this time. No.
If I say Alexa, how many Alexas are just switched on?
The one in the studio
Pete.
switched on. God, yeah, you have to watch it because this one, every time you say that word, this damn thing in the studio light starts clacking at me.
Which words?
Well, I'm not saying it.
Have you seen some people have? Oh, actually, some chaps. He's fully Alexa'd his telescope, so he just does full voice control on his telescope now.
Oh,
Wow,
nice.
this is about Sissy astronomy. My God.
Doesn't he do anything? Just talks at it. I think you should just get a friend.
Just get married. What can I say?
I'm looking for a picture of me in front of Stonehenge in 1992, but I can't locate it right now.
Yeah, fine. When we want to see that on the screen, definitely. Yeah. Stonehenge.
One of the great things about Alexa and Siri and stuff like that and what they've done, back in the day when I worked for the Veterans Administration in the early 80s, late 70s, we spent hundreds of thousands of dollars trying to build accessible instrumentation for quadriplegic and paraplegic vets. Now they can throw an Alexa, they can go buy a couple of interfaces and basically set the whole thing up themselves. And it's an amazing, I don't know that everybody thinks what Alexa and Siri has done for accessibility issues for people like that. It's pretty phenomenal. Very great.
Here's, you said something about, you have to go to a song, Pete?
Yeah.
You have time? Okay.
Yeah.
Here's a little sample of Australia for you. You can't see this, listeners, but this is a guy who's covered in tattoos from head to toe, solid as a rock. His name was Roman, and he was one of the helpers on the at the hotel where I stayed. I wouldn't call it a hotel, but at the hotel I stayed in Home Hill. Roman was his name, and this guy looked exactly like Robert De Niro, the American actor, covered in some kind of Australian gear. He rode a motorcycle with no shoes or socks at all. And he had on the same little tighty-whitey shorts that everyone else in Australia wears, these little silk shorts that all the men wear for some reason. And the day I got there, this guy meets me, and the first thing he tells me is to punch him in the stomach as hard as I can. Okay. So he wants me to hit him as hard as I can to show me how tough he is. And I said, no, man. And so finally I did. I punched him in the stomach. The guy didn't even breathe. He's almost 70 years old. Then he wants me to run him over in my rental car. He says that I can drive over him in a rental car if I want to. So that's the kind of toughness you got in Australia. And if you notice, his neck here is bare, and that was one of the few spots on his body that wasn't totally tattooed. This guy got my Led Zeppelin tattoo that I have on my forearm. He had the same exact tattoo put on his neck before we left as an expression of friendship. So you talk about funny stories from my travels.
That's a good one.
That's a good one, yeah.
Good old Dundee, wasn't it?
This is not as funny. This is a picture of the Calcium K largest prominence ever imaged from the Earth, inside the Earth's atmosphere. That I went, while I was there in 2014, I was part of that Astrophotographer of the Year award or whatever. And I was like, man, I got this wrapped up, dude. This is the biggest prom ever taken from inside the Earth's atmosphere. I'm like, yeah, I'm the man. I'm the man. And I get in there and I come in like 100th place. You know, Alexandra Hart just beat me mercilessly with her photographs. Right. So this one was hanging in the observatory for a while. It's a large solar prominence imaged in Calcium K. And I really love this because a 12-year-old girl took this photo on my equipment at an event here in the United States called Dragon Con. Okay, so I really, was feeling kind of guilty because I didn't even take the image. So I was having this girl operate the equipment. So that was one of the coolest things about being in London. I really wanted to win, and my ego was bruised, man. But I was happy for Alexandra because she won fair and square.
I remember that visit because that was the visit where I was down there as well. And if you remember, they were giving out these little nibbles, or they call them canapes. And of course, where I live in the UK, a canapes is a can of peas. And this guy come over and he goes, canapes? Is that all we're getting? Canapes, and I remember you cracking a joke as well, and I don't think they got your sense of humor either.
No. I was a little rough around the edges for some of the English. But, you know, these guys, you guys have a serious, you know, you had this facade of seriousness, and you're all very dry with your humor, which I really enjoy a lot. Michael Hattie, you know, one of my favorite people, he's real dry, but he's funny as can be. But, you know, this whole proper thing, you know, to maintain properness, I think it's a lost art, and I think it should spread through the United States, because we could certainly use some proper behavior at this time in the United States. So I wanted to say thanks again to Mark and Fiona for taking me to Harry Ramsden's Fish and Chips.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Ramsden's.
To see my long lost relative's fast food enterprise, and because you know I am of English descent, and Jesse Ramsden is in the family about 7 generations back. He was an astronomer back in the old days. He was also bald and fat, and you know it was cool to see how prevalent the Ramsden name was over there. I've always thought of myself as being more of a Norse god figure, you know, with Viking descendants. I mean, it's obvious when you look at me at how massively powerful I am. But you know, Harry Ramsden's Fish and Chips was a real treat. So thank you for that, Mark. And there's
You're
the
welcome,
kitty again.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to go to another track now, and we'll come back to the chat room in
Lamb of God.
with a few questions. So we're going to go on with, I think we'll have a little bit of Deep Purple and Black Knight.
Oh, I love Deep Purple.
Oh, there we go.
Best drummers, one of the best drummers ever.
There you go. Stephen, your observations of people that we've met over there. I happen to have a daughter-in-law who comes from Bergamo, Italy.
So we'll set that back on record.
Infinite diversity and infinite combinations.
Yeah. So I've got a couple of questions for you. And the one question has come in from Stefan in the Russian Federation. He's just outside of Moscow, and he said, "You're infamous out there." Infamous, he said. So he said, but he's asking the question what we were talking about with in the chat during that last track, and that is preferences on solar telescopes. What are your preferences?
Is that question for me?
It is.
And his name is Stephen?
Stefan he's just
Stefan.
outside of Moscow.
Welcome to the show, Stefan. I never met a tougher group of people in my life than Russian submariners while I was in the military, just to let you know. They made great dance partners. So, yeah, well, it's a submarine. You take what you can get. So, my preference on solar telescopes, well, disclaimer, I am currently sponsored by Coronado for equipment. I previously was sponsored by Lunt. I have accepted donations from Daystar as well. In my opinion, there's no better visual view of the sun than through a Coronado double-stacked H-alpha telescope, 90 millimeter preferably. The 70 millimeter they make is also an excellent visual view. Coronado uses a tilt-tuned synthetic Etalon system that has an inherent bright, uneven illumination, you would say, which provides the most breathtaking visual view you can get in any telescope, in my opinion. Not so good for imaging because it's unevenly illuminated. It can be compensated for through various filters. But as far as visual, there's nothing better on Earth than that. Coronado double-stacked H-alpha telescope. Imaging-wise, you want a flat field with steady, even illumination and high resolution. So I would go with the solar spectrum filters made on the Isle of Man. A couple of 100 millimeter solar spectrum filters on a decent refractor, triplet refractor or better, will provide the best full disk imaging, in my opinion, that you can get. The Daystar quarks are the least expensive options normally if you already have a telescope. And they also provide a kind of a mix between the two, a pretty good visual view and a pretty good imaging view. Takes a little more of a learning curve to be able to use the quark right off the bat. And you do have to plug it in because it's a different Etalon altogether than the air-spaced Etalons. You know, the Daystar uses a cleaved piece of mica, an actual rock, heated to a certain temperature. And when you heat it to a certain temperature, the molecules align in a way that the peak of the hydrogen alpha wavelength, or whatever wavelength they've made the quark to be in, is revealed. If it's not heated, then it doesn't work. So that's another option if you have an existing telescope. And really probably the highest resolution way to get into solar astronomy for the least amount of money is to buy a plain old Herschel wedge. A Herschel wedge will provide breathtakingly fantastic views of solar granulation in the photosphere. And you can get these wedges for a couple $100 if you have a telescope. So that's some of my views on that. You know, I've got a lot of time at the Hydrogen Alpha eyepiece and a lot of time imaging, but I certainly don't compare to someone with Mark Townley's experience. He's probably got some input on this. You know, I've looked at the sun a few times, but you know, Mark's a brainiac. What do you think, Mark?
For me, I mean, I've used a whole range of scopes from different manufacturers. You know, at the moment I'm using the Coronado 90. I'm using a Lunt 50, just a front mounted Etalon there. I'm also using the Quark, you know, and that's in a range of scopes all the way from sort of 40mm aperture all the way up to 200mm aperture, as you know, and different wavelengths as well. You know, the calcium, bit like Stephen, is one of my favorites. You know, the detail and the features you can image there, I'm going to say, because it's not that easy to see visually. It's all right, things are popping up on my screen here. There we go. Sorry, but also with the sodium Quark as well. You know, I use one of those regularly as well, and it's very similar to white light. But I'm kind of looking forward to this new solar cycle. Because I think when we start getting some of the flares going on, we're going to get a view that's kind of white light with you know, where you can actually see some of these flares in the sodium. So I'm quite looking forward to that. I didn't unfortunately get the sodium until sort of the back end of the cycle 24. You know, so I'm not really tested its full potential, I don't think, yet.
You know, I had a sodium, a magnesium, and a calcium Daystar Quark, and I sent them all to my friend Umair Asim in Lahore, Pakistan, and I'm still awaiting results on that to see what he can do with those. You know, it's a wonderful thing to look at the sun in any wavelength, but I think maybe the root of the question might be, you know, how do I start out? I think pretty much everybody in this field started out with a Coronado PST, the personal solar telescope, 40mm. That's in the U.S. it sells for about $600. In fact, now in my current outreach that I'm doing is nature hikes, where we start by looking at the sun in a couple of wavelengths, and then we go look at animals. That's all I carry is a double stack PST that I customized a little bit, and so that's a 40mm cheapie. So, you know, I don't know that it really matters how much money you've spent on your equipment. I think mastering the equipment you have is way more important than upgrading to better equipment, because the majority of people I met that do this hobby don't understand more than about 5% of the capabilities of what they have now. And they think that throwing more money at it is going to get them, you know, a better image, when really understanding what you have and using it to its fullest will be much more profitable in the long run. Can you agree, Mark?
Yeah, absolutely. Very, 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 very much agree. Yeah.
I mean, that comes on to the next question from Tien in Japan. He said he bought.
I'm married. Is that the question? Yes, I'm happily married. Okay.
He's a man.
Oh, sorry. Well, I live in Atlanta, so that is irrelevant.
Doesn't matter. And you've been on a submarine dancing with Russian sailors, but we won't go down that road. No, what he said is, he said he started off with a PST, and then he went out and bought himself a double stack 90mm Coronado, and he said he just can't get to grips with the double stack unit, and he's taken that off, and he finds he's getting far better use out of it without the double stack on. Now, I know you can't really answer this question without sitting down with him and showing him, but is there
probably can.
He said, is there any pointers to what he's doing wrong?
Yes, your blocking filter is probably covered in rust. So pull out your blocking filter and look at the inside of it, and if it's got a grainy surface on it, then you need to replace the blocking filter, which is a very simple thing you can do by reading a post on the Solar Chat forum. And number two, when you have your second etalon on the Coronado, the position of it relative to the first etalon makes a lot of difference. So turn it 90 degrees. Don't unscrew it. Don't let it fall down the driveway like I've done. But, you know, turn the etalon a little bit. Try some more adjustments. And also, if you've had this for less than a couple years, a lot of people think that the reason that something's wrong with the scope because they're not seeing anything on the sun. Well, newsflash, there isn't anything on the sun to see right now. So if you're not getting that great of a result with your double stack, I would venture a guess that it's either your blocking filter may have a little rust on it, or you are seeing a beautiful image of the current featureless sun. Okay.
Yeah.
Very common for the blocking filters to be rusted. No big deal. And I'll just add this on there. Maybe Mark has some more info. Anytime you add a second etalon to any H-alpha system, no matter what configuration it is, you are reducing the band pass by about 40%. And you are also reducing the light through the scope by about 40%. So it's always darker. Like a PST double stacked is almost invisible. I mean, it's so dark sometimes, but that's the nature of the beast and that's how it works. So expect a darker image, but that doesn't mean it's not working properly. Play with it some more, tune it some more, get used to it. And I think that you'll find that the double stack image is unbelievably awesome when there's features in the chromosphere to see, not so awesome when there's no features to see.
Yeah.
Anything to add, Mark?
Yeah, I mean, from my perspective, exactly the same as Stephen said, really. I think what I'd be looking at doing, you know, we're just coming out of solar minimum at the minute. We're getting a few small active regions. I in that situation, I think I'll be focusing on viewing in single stack, you know,
Yes.
sort of getting used to that. And then, you know, go on the websites, go on Gong, these sites that show the live views of the sun. When we do start getting features, that's when to put the double stack on. And then when you know what it should look like from using the live website, you can learn how to tune the scope. And, you know, a double stack scope in solar maximum is
It's
you know, one of the, it's fantastic, isn't it? You know,
I've literally gasped for air sometimes looking at features, like when the X-ray flares a few years ago that lasted for 40 minutes or so, and you know, you just your jaw is dropped to the ground. It's so beautiful. But right now, you're not going to get that because there's not a lot of high contrast features to see in the chromosphere. No. You're better off using a single etalon right now. David, you have your hand up. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Is it fair to say that if you've got your solar telescope focused correctly, and even if the sun is showing zero features, you should still get a sharp limb. The edge of the sun should still be nice and sharp. And would you not get that, I think it's best described as an orange peel effect?
Yes, you should.
Not to be confused with granulation.
In 80 millimeter or larger aperture, I've found that the point at which you are perfectly tuned and focused is when you can see a very thin gray line around the entire limb of the sun, and that's the edge of the chromosphere. And when you can see that, you are on the money right there. Okay, now you can't really see that limb with a PST normally unless it's Mark Townley's highly customized PST. But when you've got it tuned and focused properly, you will see a very grayish, very small half-Earth diameter line around the entire limb of the sun. So, you know, people give up really easy on these because it's hard to see the wavelength when you first get one of these telescopes, and they're not blown away by Saturn's rings within 10 seconds of looking. So people tend to say, oh, that sucks, it doesn't work right. Really, it takes a dozen or so viewings, in-depth viewings with the scope before your eyes even become sensitive enough to see the features you're looking at. And also, it takes some time to learn how to adjust the etalons independent of each other and then how to use them together. And it's, you know, it's a challenging hobby that has great rewards. So I'd say don't give up, keep going, and just don't expect, you know, you're not gonna see fantastic features the first 5 seconds you look in the telescope. You know, it's very rewarding, but it takes a little time.
Marcus in Uppsala in Sweden, he's emailed in and he said, you're well known for your solar astronomy. He says, but do you do nighttime astronomy? And if so, what sort of things do you do?
Well, I normally start my nighttime astronomy by putting on my high heels, a pair of hose, and, you know, a nice Sunday dress. And then I go out and Yes, I do night astronomy, and I have a little 14-inch Dob, and I have a astrophysics, Starfire refractor, and an AP mount. And there's a lot of call for that. My night setup is on a rolling trolley that I roll out of my garage into my driveway in downtown Atlanta. And the reason I don't do a lot of nighttime astronomy is because I live in downtown Atlanta. So it's basically the same skies as trying to do it from the park in the middle of London, Regent's Park or something. You're not going to get a lot. So I do see planets, and I can see the Orion Nebula and things like that. But you're not going to get any deep sky astronomy done in my driveway. But I do a lot of broadcasts on the internet. Like I just did Mars last week. If you guys, I'm sure all of you have, but if you haven't looked through your telescope at Mars in the last 2 weeks, you really should, man. It is unbelievable how clear it is right now and how you can see the features even with a small telescope. I mean, a crappy DSLR or an iPhone, you could hold to the eyepiece and get a photograph of, all the features on the surface. And you can really understand why these guys thought there were canals and things on Mars. It's really incredible. And that's another subject. But go out and look at Mars right now if you haven't. So I do nighttime astronomy. And, I started out with the Atlanta Astronomy Club before I kind of went all solar by trying to do nighttime outreach with the Astronomy Club. And Frank will tell you the same result happened with me. I couldn't get anybody to go do anything. Nobody wanted to bother with it. Who cares? Nobody wanted to do outreach. And I was thinking, this whole club charter says we're here to teach astronomy to other people. And I'm trying to get them to go do it. Nobody will do anything. So that's when I kind of moved on to solar astronomy. So yeah, I like sissy astronomy. Nighttime astronomy as well. And if you don't know, the sissy astronomy thing is a joke from my first appearance at NEAF, and it's a long story, but I mean no ill will concerning it. Well, maybe I do.
And another question, and this is coming from Rob, and he's in Dubbo in Australia, near Siding Spring. This is a daft question, but he wants me to ask it. He said
his name is Rob, and he's in Australia. Did I hear that correctly?
Yeah, just outside of Dubbo.
Let me call my attorney.
He said Yeoman Brand or Deanna Troy.
What kind of question is that, man? Science officer to Paul. Are you crazy? Fucking science officer to Paul, man. There's no comparison.
Trust an Australian to ask that question.
If I had to choose between those two, obviously Yeoman Rand. Give me a break.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll put that to
Janice Rand, by the way, was her name.
Janice, yeah.
Yes.
We'll put that to the rest. Mark, how about you?
I'm not sure.
Is Fiona there, is she?
I think Mark's a Dr. Crusher kind of guy.
He's not in. He's gone out.
Yeah, she's gone to bed now.
Dave?
The trouble with Miss Troy is she can read your mind, so that's got to be. I'd go for the Vulcan science officer.
Oh, of course. Yeah, there's no comparison.
Actually beautiful.
Go with Simon now.
Intelligence as well.
See where Simon's going to go with that one.
Well, you worked out I wasn't a Trekkie, and I got scared off as soon as I saw 7 of 9.
So you're going to go with Jabba the Hutt, then, is what you're saying?
Simon, you should have hung in there for another series. It got better.
Dear.
Yeah, I don't think there's ever been a more beautiful woman than Science Officer T'Pol on any television in the history of television.
Which one was she? Oh, she was in the Enterprise, wasn't she? Yeah. But she was always miserable.
And I'll tell you who I also thought was beautiful. And it's a total package for me. You got to be intelligent and also challenging and beautiful, like Mark's wife, Fiona. Intelligent, charming, beautiful,
what a creep, what a crawler.
What you need. And I'd have to go, and mention Ensign Ro from Star Trek The Next Generation, if anybody remembers her. She was a Bajoran, the first Bajoran person.
Yeah.
I've got to say, this is all sounded rather sexist, and I think you should ask Kath.
We'll bring Kath in. Which captain?
Kath, who's it going to be? Worf or Morg from Quark's Bar? Morn.
Jean-Luc Picard.
Kath's muted. I think she's muted on that one. Is she still there?
Oh, I'm here. Yes, I'm here. Yes. Yeah, it's very rare on that quiet, Pete. You should know. I'll say it before you do. Yeah, my favourite captain would be Jean-Luc Picard. And I would have gone with Deanna Troy beforehand. I was just mesmerised by her. There's something very Just something very beautiful about her. Probably the character that she portrayed, because you know she was all.
I didn't
An
expect the
empath.
conversation to go this
Yeah.
way, to be honest.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, she's in the
But
new
she
show
would-
Picard also, and she really is very good in
Yeah.
Picard.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yes, she is. Yes, yeah, she's yeah. But
I
she,
just want to say Steve started this.
Yeah.
You know,
It's nothing to do with any of us at all. We got nothing to do with it. People from blooming Australia asking the question. And
Wow.
well, I have to tell you, my most inspiring character in all the Star Trek franchises has been Captain Archer, and I'm just partial to that. But everyone's got their favorite, man. It's
Yeah.
cool. As long as you love Star Trek, everything's okay.
the
It's-
one that wound me up the most was Janeway. She wound me up.
oh.
was she related to Audrey Hepburn by any chance?
That's in Janeway?
She just, yeah, Janeway. She just sounded like Audrey Hepburn.
Yeah, I just
Really?
found with the Voyager lot, they were, I don't know, they were just all a bit.
Did you see the episode where Janeway and Tom Paris turned into amphibious lizards and
The
breeded on
de-evolved.
after we passed warp 10?
Yeah,
That's it. Don't
Had
go
children and everything. Boy, I was hoping there was going to be a spin-off with that one, but a new series,
The
you know, just
galaxy
about the
far
two
away.
lizards and their family of Janeway Paris offspring.
oh well, if we got a bloke in Britain called David Icke, and he believes the royal family are lizards, so he's probably
I don't
Well,
know
I
the way
for
things
one
have been
welcome
going
our-
on. You might be right.
I, for one, welcome our lizard overlords to come back to the United States and take over, please.
they could probably do a better job. Another question has just come in, and this one, who's it? Oh, Lynn. Lynn's in Southampton in the UK. She said, when will we expect the sun to start to pick up? As far,
Well,
you know,
I would say within, let's see, it is currently 4:30 p.m. By 5:15, there should be a couple. No, it's October now, and you know the solar cycle is 11 years from peak to peak, traditionally and on average. So we have been in solar minimum basically for a couple years, and I think it's going to be another 12 to 18 months before we start seeing significant activity. And you look within about 40 degrees of the equator, north or south, is where all the activity normally happens. And within 2 years, certainly there'll be sunspots in active regions. But the good thing about a 4-year lull in activity is that you also have a 4-year increase in activity. So be patient, and within 2 years, by the time the next solar eclipse comes through the United States and South America, you will be filming the moon passing over massive active regions. I can guarantee you. Anyone that tells you they know when something's going to happen on the sun is lying to you. No one has any idea what's going to happen tomorrow on the sun. And anytime NASA needs some more funding for a project, or somebody's trying to get their name in the paper, they'll write some article about how this is the worst solar minimum that's ever happened, or this is going to be the greatest solar maximum that's ever happened. After monitoring all these stories for years, I've found that none of them are dependable. And the only way to tell when something's happening on the sun is to look through a telescope and see that something's happening on the sun. And the technology is evolving, the prediction capabilities are evolving. But as of now, nobody has any idea what's going to happen next month on the sun. Would you agree, Mark?
Yeah. Activity is picking up, but it's very, very small scale at the minute.
Right.
You know, you've got to know what you're looking at to see it, and know where to look, I think.
Yes. And Frank, you had your hand up? I'm running your
I
show
was
for
just-
you, Pete. You just
I was just going to say, that's cool. I was just going to say, now that we're back on topic here, because I was hoping you weren't going to ask me that, because I've been dedicated to Wonder Woman since I was 7 years old, so I can't riff from there. So
a worthy
But,
one to be dedicated to.
for those who can't see Stephen here, you're kind of fair-skinned like me, Stephen. And our local club built a solar observatory with a LUNT and a couple other products, Coronado. They got some other nice stuff in there. And you talk about spending enough time at that eyepiece to really get going. It's pretty darn hot looking down the tube of one of those things at the sun. So
It
what
is.
is your guys' secret there for sitting out? And, I got my hat kind of tilted down
Right.
and holding up some cardboard and stuff like that.
Well,
So is it,
I wear clothing that's UV reflective. These shirts that I have reflect UV, and I always wear a hat, a wide brimmed hat, when I was doing outside solar astronomy. And it's an interesting topic, because in Australia, when I was there for several weeks, they will not allow the students outside without a wide brimmed hat and long sleeve shirts. And there's no shorts worn there, because the threat of skin cancer is so severe in Australia that they dress to prevent it. And you're not even allowed to be there without that gear, to be honest. The UV index in Australia, and nobody believes me, but you know, here in the United States, the UV index goes up to 11 or 12, I believe. And that would be a horrible day if it were a UV index of 10. People would be screaming in the streets here. But the UV index never got below 10 in Australia. I mean, they had days of 18, 16, 18 UV indexes. And I had the UV beads you've all seen that turn purple, you know, when they're exposed to the sun. And I have a video on YouTube in Brisbane, Australia, of you couldn't even get your hand fully open before the UV beads were absolutely dark purple. They would go from white to dark purple before my hand would even open. And people don't even believe me when I say that. So the video is on YouTube. And if it's on YouTube, you know you can believe it.
Yeah.
But as far as protecting yourself, I am a fair-skinned Aryan, clearly in Nordic descent, Viking-like body and features. And those of you that have me on screen, it's obvious. You know, I'm just trying to display that for our radio listeners. But yeah,
It's
man,
interesting you tell us that story about Australia, because my wife was asking me, you know, now we walk around with these N95 respirators here around Wisconsin here. She had said to me just recently, what was next? And I said, well, pretty soon our grandkids are going to be wearing all reflective jackets. And I didn't realize the fact that in Australia they were already at that point where it was a day-to-day common knowledge that they had to be that careful about that.
And this is a great segue back to Star Trek: The Next Generation with the episode Inner Light, where Picard was on a planet whose sun went nova. And you can see the mastery of the consultants for that show as they progressed through his life. They were wearing more and more protective garb from ultraviolet rays, and it's a serious thing, and it's definitely on the rise. You know, a product of global warming. So yeah,
that's one of my favorites episodes of The Next Generation.
Right.
He lives a lifetime in the matter of an hour.
Right, generally regarded to be the best episode of the entire series.
I think so, yeah. I just want to point out, Derek has sent me a message to say that I was incorrect when I said Audrey Hepburn. I should have said Catherine Hepburn. Janeway, when Janeway is talking, she
yes. Now that I can see.
A bit like Cary Grant, I suppose. Yeah, but yeah, she's got that voice. Yeah, but very good. Yes.
Yeah. I remember, Stephen. I was down at I was doing an outreach day, solar outreach day, and a lady came up to me. I think I've said this story before on the radio, but I'll tell you. A lady came up to me and she said, "Have you ever been to Spain to view the sun?" And I said, "No, I've not been to Spain to view the sun." She says, "They have a different sun down there. It's much hotter."
Yeah.
I was trying to explain.
You didn't know that?
We have the same sun.
You know, that's funny and all that, but it does bring up an interesting point, and that is almost nobody out there knows anything about the sun, and it's a great outreach topic. You know, I when I started this program, I had these visions that I was going to be standing in front of high schoolers, going on and on about the majesty of the physics of light and how these different wavelengths and the magnetic fields and the barriers reflecting and diffracting sunlight, and you know how wonderful. Within the first 10 minutes of my first outreach event, I realized that if I could just get kids to understand bright, hot, you know, star, if I could just get that across, I was making a miracle happen, because teachers or students knew almost nothing about the sun. I mean, the sun is the most important object in the entire universe to our species survival. And yet I can count on two hands now in 12 years how many teachers or students I've talked to that had any idea how the sun worked or what the sun was made of. That's shocking to me, you know. And then I realized what a nerd I was, because I grew up knowing these things, and my mother instilled this knowledge of science at an early age, you know. And I was reading encyclopedias as a kid when the other kids were smoking dope and listening to Van Halen or whatever. It was shocking to me how little people knew about the sun. And then, of course, I turned that into an opportunity. This is what I should be teaching, because nobody knows anything about it. I can't tell you how many teachers have walked up to the telescope and go, "Is that Mars?" You know, because it's red and it's in a telescope, it must be Mars. You know, it can't be the sun. What do you mean the sun? And then they just kind of draw a blank. So it's a great opportunity to teach something that nobody knows about.
Okay, what we're going to do now, we're going to go to another track and we'll come back with some listeners' questions. Okay, folks, this is Led Zeppelin and Dazed and Confused.
Well, that's a long one.
You just gave me an idea when you said Led Zeppelin then, so I
Like
thought,
it was
"Ah,
5 minutes.
That is a crazy long track.
I was going to mention something there.
no."
I wonder, has Damien ever imaged the sun? Because he's an amazing lunar and planetary.
He has images.
That's
Of him. He just
He's done
hasn't
solar
published them.
work, yeah.
I was on a
Please
show
let
in
me interview
Australia.
him on Monday, Pete. Please, just tell him it's going to be me.
Okay.
I was on a show in Australia with Damien. He's a very soft-spoken guy with a super dry wit. Very
Yeah.
fun to talk to. And I think he's really involved with his young son now and his family. And I think he's just, strayed away a little bit while things are slow.
Yeah, he's on a good roll at the moment. He's producing some amazing images. He's got a new telescope as well, I think. So he's trying that out.
I would call Damien Peach the best planetary imager on Earth
Yeah,
by a long shot.
got to be.
There is a group of them, isn't there? There's about 3 or 4 up there, and he's one of that pack, I think.
I taught him everything he knows. If you didn't know.
Of
He
course.
said you did, yeah.
Yeah, he credits me with all that stuff.
Okay, we got some listeners' questions come in, and here we go. We got the first question, and this is from Rolf over there in Germany, and he wants to know global warming. He said, was it inevitable anyway? Is the sun changing, and that is helping towards global warming? He said, I know that humans acceleration. He says, but would it have been an inevitable thing, but over a longer period of time? An interesting
yes.
question.
Over a billion-year timescale, hundreds of millions of years, we have undoubtedly, and I don't even know, no politics, but we have undoubtedly accelerated the process by many times.
I was listening to an not AAVSO, an AAS lecture earlier in the year, and I'm sorry I can't quote exactly who it was, but one of the persons who was talking on there about solar work, they said it was definitive, that they have shown definitive now that the changing of the sun has absolutely nothing to do with our short-term climate change problems. And not being an expert like yourself, I can't go much more into that, but because I've heard people say that too here, it's not us, the sun's changing so much. So
the sun has not changed at all in the last 200 years.
right.
The sun changes on timescales in the tens of millions of years. So.
Yeah. So Simon, you on any thoughts on that?
No.
No.
No,
I think
it's just people keep touting it as sort of evidence and whatever, and it's just baloney. It's sort of it's proven. You see the effects on the rest of the solar system. They're not going through global warming.
No.
So, yeah.
They've already been destroyed by global warming. So yeah, that's the future of our planet. If you want to see what's coming in 100 million years, look at Venus.
Well, but the penguins are going to be okay from what we've been discussing over the last few weeks. So
Venus.
yeah,
The penguins on Venus, of course. Yeah.
Penguins.
Well, I mean, we've done a whole show on penguin flatulence, more or less.
Maybe we should build an ark and take one of every species or 2 of every species and sell it to Mars.
Yeah, we just say let's leave one of the species out of it and leave the humans.
Yeah, another one too.
Yeah, leave the humans.
Yeah,
here.
the most invasive species out there.
Yeah.
Us.
But you say about the global warming. If you look at the graphs, all the charts do indicate, going back to the Industrial Revolution, from there on, the carbon emissions have increased and the environment's got worse and worse. But I'm looking in the other sense where we have the mini ice ages. Is it possible that we've got other cycles with the sun? We have our 11-year cycle, 22-year cycle. How long have we been keeping records of solar observations?
Official records since about 1840.
It's not
Like
that
Western-
long on the scale, is it really?
Yeah, not very long.
So what happens if there's a 400-year
you've
cycle?
got-
But if
We've
you
got-
count the Chinese observations, about 4,000 years, but they
Yeah.
weren't up to our scientific standards. So
And
we're about almost 200 years.
we've got tree rings as well. We've got ice cores that all give away what's been.
Plenty of indirect things you
Yeah.
can study
Yeah.
to get that.
They're good points, actually. Tree rings do indicate rapid growth or lack of growth. And of course, when you do those ice cores, you can go back thousands of years or even more. Yeah.
You can measure solar cycles also through methane content or cosmic ray radiation back through ice cores, the amount of certain atoms that are ionized due to cosmic radiation. Because cosmic rays are much more prevalent in solar minimum than in solar maximum. So you can indirectly measure many different ways of tracing the past solar cycle. But as far as things that would be recognized as reliable for today, less than 200 years. And
Yeah.
Another question that has come in, and this one is from Jill in Dublin. She's finally got her question in tonight. Jill said, ask Stephen, what he thinks about Maunder minimum, yes or no?
yes, it's a well-defined and studied thing. Maunder minimum. One of my favorite stories about that is its direct relation to the Stradivarius violin. How the wood that grew during the Maunder minimum was of a denser nature, had a tonal quality that has not been reproduced since. And they attribute the tonal characteristics of the Stradivarius violins to wood grown during the Maunder minimum. And that's not just a flat earth thing, that's a scientific reality. Maunder minimum was a period of low solar activity. And the reason that that's okay is because there are fairly reliable observations during that time that can verify that happened. And if anybody doesn't know, the Maunder minimum was a longer period of time where the peaks were of less activity on the sun. And people want to say we're going into a new Maunder minimum now or whatever, but like I say, nobody knows what's going to happen next year on the sun. We do know what happened last year, but we don't know what's happening.
Okay, I've got a question aimed at Mark. Are you still here, Mark, somewhere?
I'm still here, yeah.
It's all right, because I can't see on my screen. Mark, a question aimed at you, and it's from John in Birmingham.
Okay.
He said he knows you're observing from just the Briley Hill area. He said, observing from Black Country in Birmingham, he said, because being industrial, will that affect any distortion or any problems in seeing with solar imaging?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's for me seen as the biggest limiting factor in solar observing. From my location, if I'm looking east, everybody says observe the sun first thing in the morning. You get the best scene. If I'm looking east, I'm seeing straight over sort of 30 miles of city, and it's. Yeah, I think so. I mean, for me, one of the bigger things as well, I live pretty close to Birmingham Airport. All the transatlantic flights going over to London go straight over my house. When we were in lockdown proper earlier in the year, and we had the great weather, and there were no flights at all. One of the things that I did notice was when I was solar observing, imaging, the exposure time was actually shorter, and I do believe that it was clearer skies. Whether that's pollution from vehicles, industry, pollution from airlines, but I had a clear reduction in exposure time, which is slowly but surely now heading back up again. But certainly, looking over rooftops, looking over concrete, looking over driveways, that really does affect seeing, and that all you can do is live with the scene you've got. Short of being able to move, physically lift up your scopes and drive out to the countryside, to a better location. It definitely affects seeing. Yeah,
well, I think definitely you're saying when the lockdown first started and everything shut down, the seeing was absolutely amazing here.
Yeah.
I mean, in Shropshire, we haven't got much industry where we are, as you know, but I don't know. You could just looking generally without a telescope and just looking up, it felt so much crisper, and the rest of it. So it's interesting. And one final question from John. He said, "Explain to me curry curry bum bum."
Oh, curry, yeah, there you go. Curry bum bum. It's a famous term, you see, on a Saturday afternoon. Sometimes you have to go out for a drink, me and Mrs. Townley, and after a few beers, it's fairly customary to go out for a curry bum bum. There's lots of fine Balti houses here in the West Midlands, and it's our personal mission to try them all out, really.
Well, the thing is, I've been honoured. I would say.
Yep.
So we've actually been on one of these curry bum bum trips, and I can recommend it. We went. I can't remember where we went, but it was somewhere near you.
Yeah.
You
Brits.
Anyway,
beat a good curry.
we've come to the end of the show now, and we want to thank Stephen for coming here onto Astro Radio tonight. It's been great having you on, Stephen, and you're welcome back anytime. If you just see that there's a show on, it's the same link every time. Just click on it and come in and have a chat.
Thank you. I'm very humbled by your appreciation, and this has been a really fun show for me. I do a lot of these, and it's really great to see you guys. It's been a lot of fun.
And you. So thank you very, very much. So, folks, I'll be back on. Actually, I won't be back till Monday because I'm doing a talk, doing the Burr Telescope to East Links Astronomical Society on Saturday. So I'll be back here on Monday when we have Damien Peach. Thank you very much. Good night. Woo.